If you've made it this far in the final hours before the total solar eclipse of August 12th, you need to understand one thing before anything else. Your presence in this video, at this exact minute, is no accident, and it is not an algorithm. Think about the last 3 days, that silent discomfort that has no name, a thought that returned 3, 4, 5 times, and you tried to push aside. A strange sleep, as if something were happening beneath the surface of your life without asking for your permission. A restlessness that didn't come from work, didn't come from your bank account, didn't come from anyone specific, and yet it's there, insisting, knocking on the door. You thought it was stress. You thought it was tiredness. You thought it was a bad day that turned into a bad week. It isn't. It is the same field that made you open this video. It is the same thing most people are feeling right now and will attribute to everything except what it truly is. And here begins the division that must remain absolutely clear. All of humanity will cross this passage on August 12th. But it is divided into 2 groups, and this division is not the universe's choice. It is the choice of each individual. The sleeping majority will feel this energy, will get irritated for no reason, will fight over trifles, will feel unwell in the morning, will complain about the heat, will blame the boss, the partner, the traffic, insomnia, diet. They will pile explanations on top of the true explanation until the signal is completely buried. When the eclipse passes, this majority will return exactly to where they were, with a vague feeling that they missed something important, but unable to say what. And the window will close for them, silently, without warning, without a second chance in this cycle. You who are here belong to the minority that has the internal infrastructure to recognize the moment and use it consciously. Not because you are better, because you decided to pay attention while there was still time. And what I am going to give you now are the 7 things you need to do in the hours that remain before the eclipse. Not to invoke anything, not to ask for anything, but to not waste what is literally being placed in front of you. Pay attention. It's no longer a matter of days, it's a matter of hours. First, understand the ground you are standing on. We are not talking about a pretty astronomical event for taking photos. A total solar eclipse is, on the physical plane, the sun being temporarily hidden by the moon, and in the human experience, a planetary-scale mirror showing that the most stable light in your life can disappear for a few minutes without ceasing to exist. This is mathematics, not mysticism, and it is precisely this mathematics that makes the final period before the phenomenon, these specific hours you are in right now, function like a pressure chamber. Every eclipse has an anteroom. It has a pre-field. It has a thinning of perception that begins long before the shadow touches the ground. This is not dramatization. It is the reason why you have already been feeling strange things without being able to explain them. You are not entering the eclipse when it happens. You are already inside it. The decisions you make now, the things you perceive now, the small shifts in attention you make now, are silently preparing what will only become visible when the light vanishes and returns. That is why those who arrive on the 12th without preparing the preceding hours cross the phenomenon, like someone crossing a tunnel with their eyes closed. They feel something happened. They don't know what. And they lose out. You will not lose out. You will arrive prepared. And preparation here is not a complicated ritual. It's not a candle. It's not coarse salt. It's not staying awake all night. It is surgical attention to 7 specific points. Let's go to the first one. Thing number 1, observe what insists on returning to your attention. There is a brutal difference between thinking about something and something thinking about you. In the hours before an eclipse, this difference becomes blatant. A name you haven't heard in years returns in a song, returns on a street sign, returns in the speech of someone nearby. An idea you had already discarded 3 times reappears with a force you cannot explain. A situation that seemed resolved returns with a new detail that changes everything. A person you had decided not to think about anymore appears in your dream with the clarity of a high-definition movie. You try to explain it away as coincidence, and then it happens again, and again, and again. The fatal error here is to discard it. Most people have been trained to call this random, and that word random has become the manhole cover that swallows all the truly important material of their lives. I want you to do the opposite in the coming hours. If something has returned 3 times, it is a sign. If it returned 4, it is insistence. If it returned 5, it is a summons. You don't need to understand why. You need to record it. Take a piece of paper, the notepad on your phone, anything, and write down what is returning. Without judging, without interpreting yet, just naming it. Because during the eclipse and after it, this list will begin to organize itself, and you will realize that what insisted on returning was exactly the material the passage came to illuminate. Not the spectacular signs, not the voice from the sky. The silent repetitions that your mind tried to sweep under the rug and couldn't. And it is exactly here that I need to tell you something, because most viewers of this type of content make the same mistake. They listen, they feel it makes sense, and then they go back to their routine, and in 3 days, they've forgotten everything. That is why I prepared the Magia 28 Exercicios as 28 Chaves do Despertar for you. It is a 28-day journey, a complete lunar cycle, made to transform this ability to observe signs into a daily and verifiable practice that doesn't depend on you remembering motivation. You open the key of the day, execute it, and by the end of the cycle you are no longer the same person who started. It was designed for those who feel lost, different, or overwhelmed and need to transform restlessness into language, shadow into clarity, signs into decisions, and consciousness into practical direction. And the reason I'm telling you about it now, in the hours before the eclipse, is simple. A portal is not an astronomical event. A portal is the turning point, where the cost of remaining stuck in your current life becomes greater than the terror of taking the next step. You take the step, and then the ground appears, never before. The 28 Chaves are the ground that appears after you decide. The access link is in the first pinned comment of this video. Go there now, secure your spot, and come back. And before continuing, write the word READY down below if you feel that this window has already begun within you. This comment isn't for me. It is a declaration to your own field and it records it. Moving on. Thing number 2. Trust your first reaction before overanalyzing it. The human mind has a strange speed. It produces an emotional response in milliseconds, and immediately after, a second apparatus enters the scene, slower, more polite, more fearful, which begins to mask that first response with all the reasons why it wouldn't be appropriate, prudent, socially acceptable, or reasonable. In the coming hours, when you think about the eclipse, when you think about your current life, when you think about what is changing, observe what appears first, before the explanations, before the whys, before the justifications. Is it curiosity? Is it resistance? Is it peace? Is it an enthusiasm that scares you? Is it a specific tiredness regarding something you no longer want to do? Is it a discomfort in your stomach when you think of a certain person? Is it an unexpected lightness when you think of another? This first reaction is the cleanest reading your body can make of reality, because it hasn't yet been contaminated by the layer of social protection. It does not lie. It may be inconvenient. It may be bothersome. It may contradict 3 years of decisions you defended tooth and nail, but it does not lie. And the eclipse has a curious property. It amplifies these first reactions. It makes what was a whisper from the body turn into a scream you can no longer pretend you didn't hear. If you enter these hours paying attention to this, you will come out the other side knowing exactly 3, 4, 5 things about your life that were previously hazy. Not because the universe told you, because you finally stopped contradicting what you already knew. The question now is not what you think, it is what you felt before you started thinking. And if you pay attention, you will notice that this first reaction carries a physical, almost muscular quality. It tightens or releases the chest. It warms or cools the back of the neck. It contracts or expands the breath. It's not psychology. It's the body functioning as a long-range sensor, picking up information that the rational mind hasn't had time to translate into an argument yet. In the coming hours, every time a decision, a name, or a situation appears, breathe once before reacting and listen to the body. If it closes, it's a closing. If it opens, it's an opening. Simple as that. Not sophisticated. True. Thing number 3. Discover what is already losing importance. This is subtle, and it is where most people slip up. People get obsessed with what will appear, what will begin, what will open, and they don't realize that before anything new, there is always something that needs to leave. And this something, most of the time, does not leave with a bang. It leaves like a light that loses intensity so slowly that you don't notice until you realize you are in the dark. Pay attention in the coming hours to one very specific thing. What was an absolute priority in your life 3 months ago and today you hardly think about? A goal you defended as if it were religion. A relationship that consumed all your mental energy. A habit that seemed impossible to abandon. A concern that dominated your mornings. A professional direction you swore was the right one. One of these things is losing weight now, not because you failed, because you are changing platforms, and what made sense on the previous platform is being automatically outdated. Recognizing this before the eclipse is fundamental, because when the light returns, you will have a natural tendency to try to refit the new on top of the old, and it won't work. That which lost importance will not regain it, and trying to revive it out of obligation, out of fear of the void, or out of habit will only delay what is trying to enter. Make a mental list now. 3 things that dominated your head a few months ago and today hardly appear. Write them down. This is a map. This is the part of the landscape that has already passed. And a landscape that has passed is not to be defended. It is to be thanked and released. Thing number 4. Stop trying to control what the eclipse should reveal. This is the point where 90% of experienced spiritual people still stumble. A person spends weeks preparing, builds expectation upon expectation, decides that the passage will bring a revelation about career or about love or about mission or about a grand calling. And when the day arrives and the revelation doesn't come wrapped as imagined, the person concludes that nothing happened. It did happen, it just didn't happen in the format of the request. The most transformative perceptions an eclipse delivers almost never arrive in the form of a great vision. They arrive as small adjustments of focus. A phrase someone says that dismantles a belief you carried for 20 years. A specific tiredness you feel while doing something you've always done, and which at that moment becomes unbearable. A strange urge to call someone. A small decision you take without premeditation, and that only 3 months later, looking back, you will understand was the moment your timeline shifted. Don't go hunting for fireworks. Don't wait for angels to speak. Don't look for cinematic synchronicities. The eclipse is a fine-tuning. It is not a show. And the tuning happens in the silent connections between events that alone would seem banal and that together form a meaning you had no way of seeing before. Your mission in the coming hours is not to force the revelation. It is to release control over its form. Let it arrive in the language it needs to arrive in, and not in the language you determined. And it is here, exactly here, that most people freeze. Because releasing control without structure becomes chaos, and chaos is not openness, it is dispersion. That is why Magia M28. Exercicios works the way it does. Each of the 28 chaves is a short, practical exercise, executable in your day, made to recognize soul signs, integrate shadow, and sustain inner truth without becoming a hostage to your own drama. If you want to reach the other side of the eclipse with real direction and not a collection of loose insights that vanish in a week, the access is in the first pinned comment. Decide now, before the window closes. Moving on. Thing number 5. Create space for silence before the big moment. This seems obvious and nobody does it. People say they want to hear the field, hear their intuition, hear their soul, and they spend 14 hours a day with headphones on, with social media notifications, with podcasts, with playlists, with others' opinions, with message groups, with background noise, and then when the moment arrives where the field could really communicate, there is no channel available. It's like trying to hear a whisper at a rock concert. It's not the whisper that is failing. It's the ambient volume that is making it impossible. In the coming hours, make a cut. It doesn't need to be a mystic cut. It's practical. 1 hour without social media, half an hour without music, 20 minutes without talking to anyone, without answering anyone, without consuming anyone's opinion. Simply being. You will notice a curious thing. There is an entire layer of perception hidden under daily noise, and it isn't dramatic. It is discreet. It is the kind of thing that appears when you are washing dishes, and suddenly you know what decision to take. That appears when you are taking a shower, and you see clearly what a person really meant weeks ago. That appears when you are lying down before sleep, and you understand why a situation hurt you so much. This layer exists all the time. The eclipse isn't going to create it out of nowhere. What it does is a physical interruption of the normal rhythm of the day, and this interruption functions as a mirror for the internal interruption your life was already asking for. If you arrive there saturated with noise, the mirror doesn't catch. If you arrive with a minimum of constructed silence, the mirror reflects with surgical sharpness. I'm not asking for a retreat. I'm asking for a window, a small, specific, deliberate window, still today. Do it now, not tomorrow. Because this window has a characteristic that almost no one observes. It is asymmetrical. 1 hour of silence now is worth 6 hours of silence next week. The field is more receptive, thinner, more permeable. The same conscious breath that on an ordinary day produces a discrete effect, today produces a measurable effect. It's like throwing a stone into a frozen lake versus throwing it into a liquid lake. The stone is the same. What changes is the medium. And the medium, at this specific moment, is liquid. Do not waste it. Thing number 6. Do not cross these hours believing that nothing else can change. Hopelessness has a characteristic that makes it especially dangerous near an energetic passage. It turns off observation. A hopeless person does not look around searching for openings. A hopeless person looks inward searching for confirmations of their own verdict. And as the field is obedient, it delivers those confirmations. If you are entering the hours before the eclipse, mentally repeating that your financial situation has no way out, that this relationship doesn't change, that this career is over, that this body no longer responds, that this country is gone, that this age no longer allows for a new beginning, you are literally configuring your perception filters to discard every evidence to the contrary. And afterward, you will say the eclipse brought nothing. It did bring something. You were the one programmed not to see it. There is a simple truth that this passage lays bare for those willing to look. Light can disappear temporarily, without having ceased to exist. That is why the sun returns. It always returns. What was there remains there during the minute of shadow. And the same goes for a life direction that is forming inside you and is not yet visible. It exists before you can see it. And the only way for you not to abort it on your own, out of impatience, out of fear, out of disbelief, is to sustain a minimum dose of willingness to believe that you still can. Not blind faith, not foolish optimism. Practical willingness to observe. In the coming hours, every time you catch yourself thinking it's over, cut the sentence in the middle. Replace it with, I don't know what might still happen. Just that. You don't need to believe it will. You need to admit you don't know. This crack is enough for the field to work. The closed certainty of despair is a padlock. An honest I don't know is a key. And it is precisely for this reason that preparing alone on impulse almost always fails. Because in the middle of the week, in the middle of stress, in the middle of tiredness, despair returns and the padlock closes again. You need structure. That is exactly what Magia M28 Exercicios was built for. 28 days, a complete lunar cycle, each day with a key that prevents the padlock from closing. You don't need to have faith, the discipline of a monk, or even be having a good day. You just need to open the key, execute, close. It is the bridge between knowing what to do and effectively doing it, and that is what separates those who come out transformed from this passage from those who come out merely moved. In the hours that still remain before the eclipse, this decision is yours. The link is in the first pinned comment. It is not a luxury of learning. It is the infrastructure to not waste the window that is closing while you watch this. Don't decide later. Later is another field. Decide now. Thing number 7, and this is decisive because almost no one thinks about it until it's too late. Prepare yourself for what you will do when the light returns. Everyone prepares for the eclipse. No one prepares for the post-eclipse. And it is there, in the post, that the passage truly collects the price or pays the dividend. While there is a great future event, it is easy to sustain attention, expectation, willingness. You can handle it, you behave, you wait. But in the minute after the sun reappears, something specific happens. There is no longer a future event to wait for. That was the event. Now it's daily life again. Monday, bills to pay, same routine, same people, same mirror. And it is exactly at this point that 95% of transformations abort, because the person expected the eclipse to do the work for them, and now that the eclipse is over, they realize the work is still theirs, and they give up. The phenomenon lasts minutes. What you do in the following weeks is what lasts. So still today, before the shadow arrives, choose one thing, one decision, one lesson, one change you already know what it is. That doesn't need more information, doesn't need more confirmation, doesn't need more of a sign. You already know. You are just postponing it. Choose that specific thing now and make a silent commitment to yourself. When the light returns, this is the first action I execute. It could be sending a message you've postponed for months. It could be canceling a subscription that no longer makes sense. It could be booking an appointment. It could be opening a difficult conversation. It could be closing a conversation that has already gone on too long. It could be starting that project for 30 minutes a day. It doesn't need to be big. It needs to be real, because it is this first post-eclipse action that physically anchors in the world everything the passage worked on energetically. Without this anchoring, the eclipse becomes a pretty memory. With it, it becomes a verifiable turning point in 3 months, 6 months, a year. Comment now down below one word that summarizes the action you will execute when the light returns. Just one word, without explanation. This works as a seal, and the field records seals. Before closing, understand one last thing. What you heard in these minutes was the preparation. It was the pre-field, the final revelation of what this specific passage means for your timeline, what comes after the 12th, what the following week will move within you, and how to not miss the micro-openings that will appear in the days immediately following is in the next video, which is appearing on the screen now. Click on it as soon as this one ends. The first 60 seconds of that content will change how you cross next week. Don't leave it for later. This content here is a coordinate. It is part of a larger map of this cycle, and each video on the channel is the next coordinate. If you are not subscribed, you will receive loose pieces and lose the context. Subscribe now, turn on the bell, and guarantee the complete sequence. The next videos show what happens after this window, and not being in the sequence is like arriving in the middle of a story without knowing how it began. You did not find this transmission by chance. Do what corresponds to someone who arrived here on purpose. The link for Magia and 28 exercices remains in the first pinned comment. The next video is already appearing on the screen, and the only thing separating you from the post-eclipse version of your life is the next decision you take in the next 60 seconds. Decide. The light will return. The question is what it will find standing.